So the debt limit ceilings have now officially been reached, and so this is actually very particularly breaking news that you guys may or may not have heard, because what this really shows right now is that one of the more uneasy news that's going on inside of Congress right now, or just our government in general, is that they're starting to run very, very low on money. And this is going to be very, very impactful. So if you are someone that cares about stimulus or any kind of social security programs or anything in that particular world, this is going to be very, very important, because right now there's a lot of talks of dangers that they might potentially now start to make cuts to a lot of these programs. But on even more interesting news is that President Donald Trump, or former President Donald Trump, it's so wild we're referring to his name again, he actually recently did come out to speak once again now about his particular opinions when it comes to the world of stimulus, social programs, social security, and everything in that particular world. And the good news is that he's actually someone that's trying to fight for it right now in order to support it. So this is actually some really, regardless of political opinion, this is just pretty good news actually if you are someone that supports stimulus programs, because Donald Trump also supports it as well, and you have one of the more significant key figures in our country that's vouching for it as well. So in today's video, what I really want to talk about is what's been going on in the world of the debt ceiling. I want to explain what's happening there. I want to talk a little bit about President Donald Trump, or former President Donald Trump, and what he thinks about it. And then I also want to maybe just add some personal insights about where I see this country going and what they see as the potential solution to everything that's happening right now with the debt ceiling, with the budget cuts, with the money, the financial, the economic situation that we're currently in. So that being said, let's just get this video started, but real fast, as always, before we begin, if you guys enjoy videos like this, remember to smash the like button, because it does help to share support, or you guys can watch to the end to decide, but it is greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about, honestly, just really anything. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about the debt ceiling, and the big story to what's happening in that particular world is that the limit for the debt ceiling was actually recently reached last week. So you might have seen already a lot of videos that have been talking about this, but this is actually a pretty dangerous situation to be in, because it means that the US is in danger of defaulting. What this particularly means in simple terms is that every single, the US in general, there's a certain amount of money that they have to be able to work with. They need to use that money to support all sorts of government-related initiatives. So this is such as like government jobs, government programs, government funding, government, all that stuff. And the big idea right now is that they've officially reached their debt ceiling limits, which means that they're pretty much low on money. And that's one of the biggest things, is that because of what's going on right now, there's a lot of talks that they have to start to make a lot of budget cuts in order to save money in other areas. And the danger about this is that specifically the House Republicans right now in general, again, just leaving politics aside because this is what's physically happening, they're trying to make a lot of initiatives now to start to cut Social Security and Medicare and other kinds of social programs. So that is really the big idea to what's happening inside of the debt ceiling situation. Now, in terms of what are some solutions that they can potentially make, or that they're thinking about making aside from making these cuts, is that there's a lot of talks right now that they want to create budget cuts in order to save money on a lot of these programs. But even more specifically, on a lot of cases, what they're also thinking about doing is trying to change up the age limits to a lot of these programs. So what that means is, for example, is to just raise the full retirement age to 70, change Medicare's eligibility from 65 to 67. Again, most of this is coming from the Republicans inside of the House. They can cut it in other areas, but the reason why we mention their political party is that because every single party has a very different opinion about what they particularly want to cut in order to save money in this particular way. So the big idea is that there's a lot of talks that they might cut it completely, but there's also a lot of talks that they might not necessarily cut it completely, but what they might potentially do is to just change up the requirements so that it makes it so that less people are eligible for it. So if less people are eligible for it, it means that less people will get it, but then from the people that do not get it, they're going to be able to save money there to make it a little bit cheaper to fund. There is obviously a lot of controversial mixed opinions. Feel free to comment what you think about this particular situation, but I think it's just important to understand what's happening right now. But as mentioned, is that one of the more interesting news that have popped up is that former President Donald Trump did now officially come out to speak, interestingly, for the first time in a long time, where he is trying to preach and vouch right now, especially against Kevin McCarthy, who is the leader inside of the House, that former President Donald Trump wants to continue these programs. In fact, he is very, very straightforward and strongly, firmly supporting right now that we do not cut out a lot of these programs. The specific argument that he has made about it is that he feels that in his particular eyes, that this is a program that we have basically paid years and years when it comes to taxes in order to have these programs like Social Security, government programs, Medicare, Medicaid, everything like that running. So for Donald Trump, he actually really supports this program or these programs. So that's actually the really, really great, promising news, regardless of your opinion about him, because I know obviously he's a very controversial guy, but he is someone that supports it. So if you also support it, then you guys are on the same exact page. And I think that's the really, really great news, because I think most people here do want Social Security and other kinds of social programs, or just simply put, programs meant to put money inside of our pockets. And that's the story with President Donald Trump. Now, in terms of some future plans that are happening, interestingly, with Donald Trump, is that he is not as vocal. Before he made this, speech and talk that he just recently did, he hasn't been as vocal in the public eye for the last couple of months right now. But when it comes to future plans, is that there are a lot of plans that he now currently has in order to kind of try to come back again and become much more in the public. One of the biggest motivations behind this is that, as most of you guys know, is that he's running for president once again. So it's believed by a lot of people is that when he starts to come back to do his campaigns for presidency for 2024, so it's going to probably start this year, but this year he's going to campaign starting into next year for running for president in order to maybe get voted again in 2024. He's going to start to come out and start to speak again. He's going to be speaking about a lot of his plans, a lot of his initiatives, what he wants to have happen, what he believes in. And I do believe by a lot of people is that Social Security and stimulus programs are going to be probably in the talks. It's not to say that it's happening. I think it's really important to make it clear, but it is important to say is that he definitely wants to keep them. And I think that's something that he's already made a very, very, very particular firm statement about. I believe that his next campaign, or his next time he's going to be speaking, is going to be in South Carolina. He has a plan where he's going to be making a speech or doing some kind of get-together in South Carolina in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And at that particular meeting or event, he's going to be talking more about his plans. He also has a conference that's coming up in Washington, D.C., which he's probably going to be attending in the next month. And those are just a couple of his plans that he has for going forward. But I think the overall really, really big picture about it is that within Congress and everyone there is that right now, admittedly, there are not a lot of talks about doing general stimulus checks, sadly. However, there are definitely still talks about doing a lot of other kinds of social programs, such as like Social Security, the $200 boost. There are definitely a lot of people that support it. But one of the most important things is, at least we now have word that one of the most powerful figures in our country also does support a lot of these programs as well. And at the very, very least, there's a little bit of a battle right now. Some people want to actually cut these programs, which is the really, really sad thing. But there's still a lot of people that are fighting for us to at least try to keep these programs so that they can at least run for as long as possible, especially because for a lot of people, this is a lifeline program. And I think it's really, really important to be able to recognize that. And I think a lot of them do recognize that. But it's because of that reason, we just have to see what they ultimately end up deciding and who wins. Right now, at this time, I think it's looking in favor that they're going to probably be keeping a lot of these programs, but it's just also important to kind of follow along so we know what actually physically happens, especially if they start to make further moves on trying to make these budget cuts apply to this. And then the big thing I think is that they don't have to make budget cuts here. They can also make it in a lot of other areas. This is just one of the areas that the House Republicans are thinking about trying to make it in. But of course, where they actually ultimately end up making those budget cuts, what ends up happening from here, we just have to to see in one of the future episodes of The Kevin Show. So with that being said, that's pretty much what I really wanted to just cover in today's update. Hopefully short and sweet, nothing too crazy. But with that being said, if you guys made it to the end, remember to smash the like button, or you guys can leave a comment for suggestions for improvements. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well. If you're watching this on release date, hopefully everyone had a great, happy Chinese Lunar New Year if you do celebrate that. And with that being said, hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.